All right. We'll have some more people joining us here shortly, but we'll go ahead and get it started today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Today, I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Kate Zerker. I'm with the My Vitals Pro team. And then I also want to introduce our two amazing speakers today. We have Chelsea Treseder with My Vitals Pro. She is one of the co-founders of the team, and Brian Urban, audiologist and founder president of Counselor, the office management system. I also want to mention, if you have any questions during our webinar today, feel free to add them into the Q&A, and we will make sure we get to those either during the webinar, after at the end when we're asking Chelsea and Brian a few questions, or we will follow up with you after. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Chelsea.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Kate. And thank you all for being here today. I want to start with kind of why we're here and why I think it's so important that we're talking today about audiology business software. As we all know, we are in what I think those of us who've been in the industry a long time have long been expecting and anticipating to be the golden era of hearing care. I mean, technology has never been better. And if you take a look at the chart on this slide, the purple bars represent the number of people in the US who are aged 65 and up each year. So in general, between 2011 and 2029, the US Census data indicates that an average of 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. And actually in the peak 65 zone, which we're in right now, that's 2024 to 2027, this is the time frame when the largest number of boomers turn 65. That daily average actually jumps to, 11,000, or some sources say even higher than 11,000 per day. So the demographics look great, right? However, if you look at the teal line on this chart, we have now experienced 6 consecutive quarters of quarter-over-quarter decline in new patient appointments per day. And unsurprisingly, this is impacting sales. So particularly on the new patient side, new patient appointments are down 7.3% year over year in the MVP data set. New patient conversions or sales are down 5.5%, and TPA units are down 7.8% year over year, a trend that we think's kind of highly correlated with that new patient one. So even though the demographics could not be more in our favor, we're really not seeing the growth that we would expect from those demographics in our practices, broadly speaking. And really, any and all growth that we are seeing this year is coming from the existing patient side of the business, which, in the immediate term is totally fine, but you can't ever become an existing patient if you don't start as a new patient. So even having a lot of sales today from existing patients, while it's great for the bank account today, can give us a little bit of pause or cause for concern for the years to come. So, not for everyone, but for many practices, this has been a bit of a tough year. So we just talked about the decline in new patients. There's other challenges that practices are facing. So many are still struggling to properly staff. I think we would all agree high-performing licensed professionals are in relatively short supply and very high demand. And there are just tons of pressures on profitability between payroll, cost of goods, other expenses. It simply just costs more to do business than it did a few years ago. And while we're seeing modest ASP gains, they're not always enough to keep up with the increasing costs of running a business. So Brian and I are of the opinion that it is more important than ever that practices implement efficient workflows that allow them to do more with less, and that they leverage data and forward-looking insights to make really good decisions in real time, because quite frankly, we don't have the luxury to wait or make mistakes. So what we're going to do with the remainder of our time here today is we're going to share some of the breakthrough features in each of our platforms that our teams have built and delivered to help practices specifically address these challenges. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brian first.
Thank you. I just echo all that information. Chelsea's obviously worked in, family-run private practice, knows the challenges. I owned a private practice. It's tough. It's really tough. There's a lot of things that you're facing, a lot of challenges. You're still seeing patients while trying to get new patients in the door. There's just a lot of things that are coming at you at one time. And so my goal today is to hopefully give a few tips that can make things a bit easier, help with efficiency, and kind of meet patients where they are. So a couple of things I wanted to mention right at the upfront. Many of you are already using these features, but just to highlight them, that if you're not, or if you maybe could use them more fully, just to save time. So one right off the top, clinics reach out to us all the time. They haven't been using online scheduling. And that can be a really, really nice feature for reducing those inbound calls. There is plenty of work typically for front and back office staff members to do. Taking every single call isn't necessarily the best use of their time, and patients are, for the most part, are expecting an online scheduling experience. Particularly think of those routine, hearing aid cleaning checks. They need to necessarily call. They can set that up, very easily, and as an extension of that, once appointments are created, the messaging process around that, the appointment notification, the confirmations, the reminders, those are things that not only, once again, our patients are expecting, it helps them as well get any forms, intakes, questionnaires completed prior to their encounter. It also helps them show up on time, right? Which is another big thing, because if you have holes in your schedule where someone calls 5 minutes after the start of their appointment, that's just money down the tank, right down the toilet. So anything that you can do, particularly from an automated fashion, to help patients get in your door, to make sure they show up on time and they're ready for their encounter, that can be a very subtle thing for helping with, just the efficiency of practice and saving money, right? Not losing money in those instances. Or in the case of like a reminder text that goes 2 hours before the encounter, patient sees that, says, oh, shoot, I can't make it. They reach out to you now. Okay, now we have 2 hours to hopefully fill that time in. Or you say, okay, you know what? In 2 hours, I have a block on my schedule. I'm going to work on marketing, right? You actually can reset your framework on what you're going to use during that time. Okay, just 2 quick things. Like I said, a lot of those are highly utilized, but very, very important if they're not utilized to their fullest extent. Another thing I want to mention just briefly, is we have to do more with less, more patient contact with fewer, if you're having difficulty with staffing issues or just time is always an issue. And so using some form of marketing automation where in particular emails are being sent out to patients automatically so that you're not, we've sat in that chair where you're going like, okay, I have this plan. Okay, I'm going to get my list. Great, I got this cool list of all these patients. I'm going to reach out to my patients that have devices that are over 4 years of age. I'm going to routinely reach out to patients with warranty expirations. All right, I got a plan for my test not treated patients. And that works a couple weeks, a month, 2 months, right? Best intentions, absolutely best intentions. I used to do it when I would go to a conference. I would get back and be like, this is happening, right? Sometimes you can be a victim of learned success. You follow up with your test not treated patients, you get a bunch more patients in. Fantastic. Now I'm really busy. Now I don't have time to continue that follow-up. So, speaking specifically about Counselor, just to kind of switch my screen over here, one of the things we do have built in, of course, is marketing automation. So the ability to send out emails in an automated fashion on a really wide range of triggers. So this is just kind of a peek behind the scenes here of these lists of triggers. But test not treated. This patient has devices that are 3 years or 4 years or 5 years old. We want to reach out to them, fitting follow-ups, quarterly newsletters, right? Holiday e-blasts. All these are really set and forget. And that's a lot of what, of course, what Chelsea's going to talk about is too, is just this ability to set things up, see the output, and not have to spend time every blessed moment worrying about it and focusing on it. And so this just gives you a really simple way of having those touch points with your patients. Those happy birthday emails that go out, boom, they go automatically, right? You can customize them how you like. You can include an online scheduling link, right? So for those patients that maybe you want to send out a message if you haven't seen them in 12, 18, or 24 months, great, that goes automatically. And then they can click the link to schedule line or call into your practice, whichever they prefer. So some of these things, once again, can help. Chelsea talked about, existing sales, from existing patients being important. Got to maintain that, hopefully grow that a little. And then just create an experience where the patient is so happy with working with you, and you're top of mind for them, and they're recommending them, you to their friends as well. Okay. The last thing I want to cover which is was in the subject of this webinar, and that is we're very excited that we've released our Counselor AI Assist feature. Like I said, this is a lot about doing more with less time. And so with, as I'm sure many of you know, incorporating AI technology, particularly into documentation, really speeds up the process. It helps with clarity, with accuracy, and just makes the process very, very routine. So not as probably a big surprise, but the way an AI scribe tool works, like the one in Counselor, is that you start a session while you're with the patient, and that could be a diagnostic, that could be routine, hearing clean checks, whatever the case may be. I won't run a session right now because I'm already using my microphone. But you can start the session, you can pause it, you can see a VU meter to make sure your mic is working and everything. Once you finish that session with a patient, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, at the end, it's going to create a transcript. And it's basically going to, of course, show you, what happened there. So you do have the ability to go back and review if there was something that maybe the patient said that, what was that exactly? You can go back and see it, right? And then from there, counselor can use that transcript to perform or to kind of render some text, right? Say, okay, based on what we know, let's take a template against that transcript, and then it'll kick out language, right? Specifically, and it's, for those of you who haven't used AI tools before, it's really very good. Like it really does an excellent job of reviewing once again, you could have a 25-minute dialogue with a patient and it will summarize it down into very succinct text. You review it, you can edit it on the fly. There may be things, maybe impressions that you gathered throughout the session that you want to maybe add a little flavor to, or maybe as you're walking out the door, the patient mentioned one last thing, right? So you want to go ahead and just add that to the text. You can do that very easily and then apply it to your report, right? Once again, the goal is you're capturing that session, you're creating the text, you're moving on, right? Let's get these reports done before we see our next patient. Because we think about kind of the end of the day or the end of the week where it's incredibly routine, and I live this as well, sitting there with a stack of reports and just going, this might be the last thing I want to do in this world right now. I don't want to sit here just writing out chart notes and reports and trying to remember what that clean and check for my 10:30 appointment said about this or that, or my audio from last Friday and now it's Monday, right? That's not the best use of your time. The best use of your time is getting quality documentation in place and then being able to focus on some of the things that you need to do, to make your practice more efficient, to help produce the type of data that will then feed into systems like MVP to really give you true kind of global analysis of your practice. So you're making, really intelligent decisions with live data. So that is the areas that I wanted to focus on. There are other areas of automation within Counselor, and of course other systems as well. So if there are things that you are, from a counselor's perspective, we tend to look at things oftentimes from the pain point. So when people are saying, some of the best feedback we get is, this is where I'm struggling, right? This is where I feel like I'm not connecting with my patients. This is where I feel like we're burning time in the practice. And then it's really nice for us because we can say, oh, we have a solution for that, or we're working on a solution for that, or we will work on a solution for that. So, if there's things I haven't covered here, please feel free to reach out to our support team, for those of you who are Counselor users, and see if there's things that we can do to help make your days a bit easier. All right, Chelsea.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much, Brian. Let me try to share my screen again here. Hopefully I can do it okay. Does everything look good there?
Great.
You bet.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again, Brian. That was really exciting to hear what you guys are doing with the AI feature and some of the other a little bit more seasoned features that, get at that point around, again, how can we do more with less in our practices? So that's really exciting.
And I'm
so what
sorry.
we're going to do next.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Of course, I just remembered. We currently have the scribe tool. We are doing a lot more with it. So I just showed you specifically what we have right now, but it's growing into other areas of the system as well. So those will be coming out in the coming weeks. So sorry, mentioned a bit before. Thank you.
No, that's great. That's also very exciting. So thank you. So next we're going to turn to some of the newest features that MVP has recently rolled out that build upon the data that you collect in your office management system, like Counselor, like Brian was just showing us, that are designed to really help you better understand, manage, and grow your business. So I know we have lots of existing MVP users with us today. So hi guys, thanks for being here. But for anyone who's unfamiliar with MVP, I'm going to spend, I promise, just like 1 minute or two explaining what MVP is and what it does. So MVP is the audiology industry's first and only true BI tool. BI, or it's short for business intelligence, is the discipline of transforming raw data into meaningful and actionable insights, which enable organizations to make smarter, data-driven decisions. It goes beyond simple reporting and really provides a comprehensive view of things like business operations, the ability to identify trends, even forecasting future outcomes. So by leveraging robust data, which in our case is generated from a system like Counselor, BI provides really unprecedented clarity and is able to guide decision making and give any kind of business owner or manager a strategic roadmap for success and achieving their goals. So that's kind of what BI is. More generally, it exists in lots and lots of different industries. And what's been a really fun adventure for us over the last 3 years was to bring that power of BI to hearing care practices specifically. And that's exactly what MVP was designed to do. So it does a lot of things. And again, I know I have a lot of existing users in here, so I'm going to keep this quick, but I want to mention for anyone who's not currently a user of MVP, just a few highlights of the types of things that MVP does. So it integrates directly with systems like Counselor so that no manual or additional work is required by you or your team. So all of the robust KPIs that you can imagine in the world are calculated in near real time and with no human involvement. Nobody from Counselor, nobody from MVP, and nobody from your practice. Again, kind of this idea of being able to do a lot more with less in your practice. There are well over 1,100 clinics using MVP today. So one of the things we're able to offer too is benchmarking to like-size practices. I know everybody wants to know, how do I stack up compared to my peers? And MVP is able to answer that for you in so many different ways, again, kind of up to the minute. We have a really strong focus on referral source analytics, database composition, campaign performance, and we're able to deliver really actionable insights when it comes to marketing at a time when, kind of as we've discussed, new patient generation is of the utmost importance. MVP also uses predictive analytics to forecast future performance based on schedule strength and a lot more, which enables you to make decisions now, not when you notice a problem in the bank account in a couple months. And also we help you understand your market share and penetration rate, which, allows you to orient yourself in your individual market and understand exactly where the opportunity areas are for you specifically to grow in your local market. Okay, so that's kind of MVP high level for anyone who's unfamiliar, but what I want to spend most of my time today doing is briefly sharing with you guys, so this applies to existing users, new users, anybody, some of the newest features that we've recently launched, which are designed to help practices in good times and also in, not so good times. So the first one here is pipeline. And what this feature does is it looks at your actual schedule, according to Counselor, and the appointments you have, specifically opportunities, which we work with each practice to custom define an MVP, the definition of an opportunity. And we combine that with past performance data from your clinic to predict future hearing aid unit sales. We give you perspective to kind of help contextualize your current performance. We give you kind of near-term benchmarks, something like where were you 30 days ago, and also longer-term comparisons. What's your average over the last 12 months? And then we also give you the ability to granularize. I knew I was going to have a hard time saying that. The data and split it out between new and existing patients. Because again, as we've kind of touched on a few times today, both important segments of your business, very different segments of your business. And the whole point of this feature is to understand as early as possible whether you have the schedule strength that you need to hit your goals. So if you do, great. And if you don't, you can react and make changes now and affect the future rather than, only learn about it in the future. Actually, something interesting I wanted to share about this feature. So many of you may have attended a webinar that the MVP team did back in February. It was called Where Have All the New Patients Gone? And it was something we planned and threw together really quickly when we were, 4 to 6 weeks into the year, and we were noticing some of these trends I talked about earlier when it came to new patients across the MVP data set. And, actually, when we launched this new feature, which was in, I think, May of this year, we went back and looked MVP data set wide. So obviously an individual practice is going to use this feature to look at their individual practice pipeline. But across the MVP data set, we can look at more industry wide trends into what's happening with pipeline. And had we had this feature live in Q4 of 2024 instead of, Q2 of 2025, we actually could have seen this slowdown that was coming, and we could have predicted what was going to happen with unit sales and new patient appointments in the beginning of the year. So, I think we ourselves learned this lesson the hard way a little bit of the importance of being able to use something like pipeline to really look out into the future and understand whether you're going to be okay and on track to hit your goals. So, again, that's why we developed it, to give you a really early look at schedule strength and what you're likely to achieve, so that if you don't like what you're seeing, you can make changes today that will improve your results tomorrow. Okay, and then related to kind of pipeline more generally, which I just talked about, we've also added the ability to visualize your pipeline by individual referral sources. So you can see which referral sources are growing, which are declining, which tend to be choppy, which are more steady state, et cetera. So we built this feature because it can be hard to understand in real time which of your referral sources are driving actual opportunities, not just appointment volume. And so we've tried to make it really easy here to visualize how those are changing so that noticing trends becomes effortless and not something you have to spend hours digging into the data every day to try to understand. And again, you're seeing this in near real time. So if you notice a dip in a certain referral source, say online, you can take quick action with your web team, give them a call and say, hey, I'm noticing some dips in new patient appointments from this referral source. Let's dig into the various, initiatives that we have underway and see what we can do about it, rather than, again, waiting a couple months and noticing that sales are soft and you don't like the looks of the bank account. So this is all about seeing things early and making changes. One of our philosophies here at MVP is that almost any problem in an audiology practice can be solved and overcome, but not if you figure it out too late, right? So it's that kind of early recognition of an issue, getting in there, doing something about it, and then you can be, back on your way to success. Okay. Next new feature I wanted to talk about is our conversion funnel. So what you're able to do here is visualize for any given month that's either completed or in progress, how many opportunities you've had, how many have converted into sales, how many were missed, and how many are still open. So this can be viewed at your total company level or at the individual clinic or provider level. And once again, segmented by new and existing patients. This feature also leverages MVP's custom opportunity logic that I talked about. You'll hear us talk about that constantly just because we believe that it's really, really important for each practice to set a definition of what an opportunity is. It flows through to so many different things in your business decision making, whether it's marketing, effectiveness, provider conversion rate measurement, all of that sort of stuff. Pipeline analytics relies on having a really strong definition of opportunity in your practice. And again, we work with each practice to do that individually, and we use all kinds of factors. So age of hearing aid, age of patient, hearing loss level, appointment type, all kinds of factors like that. But again, the way practices are using this conversion funnel, compare provider performance to one another, compare a provider to themselves over time and see if there are changes in the looks of their funnel, coach and train where needed if you have somebody with, a significant number of missed opportunities, and even follow up on open opportunities. I think we all know in a busy practice, sometimes these can just kind of linger there. It doesn't mean they're necessarily lost. And if there's activity you can take to get these people back in and eventually convert them, the money and the time's already been spent. That's about the best thing you can do for your business there. Okay, and the final feature I wanted to talk about is MVP data alerts. So data alerts are sent in, again, near real time to notify you of significant changes in your business. We alert on the most critical KPIs. So as of now, it's things like revenue, payments, opportunities, pipeline, conversion rate, just some of those critical metrics that are super important for an audiology practice. Although we have others and we're open to adding others. So kind of like Brian said, If there's something that's of particular interest to you in your practice and you'd like to be alerted on it, you just let us know. We alert, on positive changes. So maybe one of your providers' conversion rate is increasing, and you can use an alert like this to recognize the provider's improvement right away and encourage them to keep up whatever, behavioral change they've implemented that's increasing their conversion rate. Maybe you get a negative alert. Something like payments collected. And this could enable you to have a conversation early with your billing specialist on, okay, why are collections slipping or delayed? Like, what do we need to look at with our payers and our follow-up processes and things like that? We also alert on metrics. This is kind of my favorite category, which are positive but trending down, because these are the ones where we're giving you the earliest possible warning that you could get that something is still okay, but might be headed in the wrong direction. And again, if I think back at like the pipeline stuff I was talking about from the end of the year, sales were at like an all-time high at the end of Q4 2024. So everybody's just happy go lucky, right? But really there was a problem brewing behind the scenes. Yet again, if we'd had this feature live, MVP would have been firing off alerts to lots and lots of practices saying, everything's still good, but your pipeline's trending down. Your opportunities are trending down, because this to me is the most exciting of the data alerts, because again, it's going to give you that really early insight into the fact that we might have a problem and let's figure out what we can do about it. If your pipeline's trending down, you want to know that now, not when sales are soft in 4 weeks or 6 weeks or what have you. So this feature was built to ensure that nothing slips through the cracks, even if you're too busy to check MVP every day. And again, it's going to enable you to take the earliest possible action on declining metrics in your practice, and also celebrate wins as soon as possible too. We all know the importance of celebrating wins with our team, because it just inspires more of that type of output. We know you have a ton on your plate as an owner, manager. You may be a provider as well. And MVP really is the tool that keeps you informed on everything you need in your business so you can perform at the highest level. So for those of you who are existing MVP users, hopefully you've checked out those features. If you want a refresher and more detail, or to look at your data specifically, we're always happy to do that. Anyone who's not an MVP user, I encourage you highly to book a demo. I couldn't spend all the time today to show you everything the tool does. I spoke to a few of the features. I showed you a couple of the newest ones, but there's a ton there, and it really warrants a one-on-one demo. So if you're not an MVP user, I encourage you to book a demo. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen here. You can visit our website, which is myvitalspro.com, and we're doing a little promo. So if you schedule your demo by Friday, it doesn't have to happen by Friday. As long as you just get it scheduled by Friday, we'll send you an MVP t-shirt as a little thank you. So that's it for me for my content. I know we have a couple minutes left, so I'll look to Kate to let us know if we have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. So this is a good question, and one I get often. This will be for you, Chelsea. How much, I guess for Brian too, how much hygiene is needed in the Counselor database before transitioning to data analytics and MVP? Or does the platform alert you of any inconsistencies of data input in a multi-clinic practice?
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to, Brian?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say we definitely get that question a lot. Like Kate said, a lot of people are concerned that their data isn't good enough to power the analytics that you had a little teaser of today. I would say from 3 years of doing this and 1,100 clinics, it's probably better than you think. A lot of people are really worried, but oftentimes it's actually pretty good. There's a lot we can do in MVP to map certain things too. So one example I'll give is, if you've had kind of messy referral sources over time, and you have one that's online and one that's website and one that's Google and one that's online with a typo or something like that, you don't necessarily have to go back 10 years and correct all that. We can do some mapping on our end to clean that stuff up. And then of course, use best practices going forward and clean it up so that you're not continuing to make those errors. But there's some things like that we can do when there's some data issues. Obviously the thing we can't do a lot about is missing data. So if there just simply is no referral source, not a lot we can do with that, unless, you have somebody on your team who can go back to the beginning of the year or something and try to input those. But yeah, I would say, I think I've run into one practice in 3 years whose data was truly so terrible that they couldn't use MVP. But, that's definitely an outlier. There's things you can do, and I'll probably turn it over to Brian at this point, to require referral source, as a field writing counselor. So there are some data hygiene things you can set up for you and your team in Counselor. There's some mapping and some things we can do in MVP. There's some training and best practices that both MVP and Counselor can provide to clean things up going forward. But Brian, is there anything you'd add on that?
Yeah, just briefly that oftentimes people will, of course, migrate their database into Counselor, and they may have, 20, 25 years of data or 2 years of patient data, whatever the case may be. That data is still available for this process. And so even though maybe you've changed your referral sources over time, the bulk of the data still has an immense amount of value. And so just from our perspective, of course, our focus is to bring over every ounce data possible. And then once it's in the system, it's available like any other piece of data to MVP.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And I'll just add one thing too, that when you get onboarded with MVP, it's not just the data from that day forward. We get a complete historical from either whenever your practice started or 2010 is as far back as we go. So that we're able to immediately do year over year, trends, things like that from day one that you're on MVP. You don't have to like wait a year in order for that to be accessible. So yeah, but thank you for clarifying that, Brian, because I do know migration is definitely a question we get a lot. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Our next question is going to be for Brian. Somebody wants to know if the AI features in Counselor are HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a hugely important question. So the systems we utilize are HIPAA compliant. Also, basically the way it works is the session, the tool listens to the session. Once it creates the transcript, that recording is immediately deleted. And so it's not preserved. And so that question comes up, do I need to have the patient sign some sort of release or waiver saying that I'm recording this conversation? It's really just in the same way as if you were transcribing this. It's a temporary recording. It's deleted immediately, and then the transcription is preserved. And so the answer is yes. So Counselor's following HIPAA guidelines and requirements in that regard.
Great. Thanks, Brian. The next question will be for Chelsea. I'm an MVP user. How can I get more help understanding the data?
Yeah, great question. So we offer support in a variety of different ways to existing users. We have like a self-service support center that's got a knowledge base with articles on how to do things, a glossary of every term in MVP, training videos for every new feature we launch, things like that. So there's some self-service things there, but we are also happy to provide in-person support as well. So we offer, on-demand one-on-one Zoom meetings. Those can be booked via our support center with one of our data analysts. And anytime you have a question about a specific feature or just you're noticing something and you want to bounce it off someone, we're always happy to do that. And you can schedule those on our website as well. You can email us. We have like a ticketing system where someone can get back to you if it's just a question, you're thinking about in the middle of the night and you want to fire it off to us, and we'll get back to you in the morning. We also offer regular MVP office hours, where if you just kind of want to learn more and hear what's new in the industry and new features with MVP and hear what questions other folks have, you can just, you can join in, you can turn off your camera, mute your mic, or you can participate vocally. It's up to you. So we offer those regularly as well, kind of like a group learning format called MVP office hours. So number of different ways. And if you have any specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Okay. We had a couple more come in here. I think Brian will answer probably some of those one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then let's see. A new clinic. We are a new clinic approaching the 1-year mark and not particularly big patient base. Would MVP be worth considering, or would it be better to wait an additional year or so?
That is a great question. I will say we have lots of new startup clinics who use MVP. Obviously, the 3-year, 5-year, patient upgrade KPIs, things like that aren't going to be super relevant to you until you've been in business for a couple of years. However, there are lots of KPIs that are super interesting to a startup. Like, what's your revenue per hour? I mean, that's important day one, right? So I do think it's still worth it. There are other tools within MVP too that I think are particularly useful for startups who don't have a lot of their own data. One of those is the benchmarks, because you're able to see practices of a similar size to you. So maybe you're one provider, maybe you're 2 clinic locations, whatever the case may be. You can benchmark yourself against those types of clinics. And I think just knowing, hey, am I overall doing a pretty good job? Again, ignore the upgrade interval stuff, because that's not probably super relevant to you till you've been in business 5 years or so. But some of the other, ASP related metrics, things like that, and being able to benchmark yourself, I think is super valuable as a new clinic. Another section that's really interesting, kind of regardless of clinic age is the market share section. So just understanding how many hearing aid users and how much hearing aid revenue, how many units, private pay, TPA are there available in my market? What's happening with the Medicare Advantage plans in my market, things like that. Those are important for anybody. Of course, you're probably not going to have 40% market share if you started your clinic a year ago, but you may see that you have 3%, and you can look at what are the areas you want to prioritize, where are the best places in your market to advertise, where do you want to grow your market share within your market given the characteristics of your market. So there's lots of information like that in MVP that I think is useful to practices of any age.
Awesome. Thanks, Chelsea. Brian, this is for you. So for the new AI feature in Counselor, can templates be created for transcription, and can those be shared amongst clinics?
Yes. So actually under the administration, there's a AI template section. When you create templates, they're available for any clinic within your company. So within your Counselor account. So those are shared amongst all users and all clinics within the organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And then I have one more question for Chelsea, and it's about data alerts. So somebody is wondering how often they will receive data alerts, and can they choose how often they receive them? Also, along the same lines, is there somewhere where they can find a summary of data alerts?
Yes, great question. So the answer to how often will you receive data alerts is it depends, because it's all determined by the data. So this is not like a digest where once a week we send you everything that we would like. These are going in real time. So if everything's sort of steady state in your business, you could go a really long time without receiving a data alert. If things are changing rapidly in your business, you may receive a lot of data alerts. Everything is fully customizable. So we have default settings for data alerts where these are the metrics we alert on. This is the threshold we look for this given metric. We alert no more often than X on a given metric. So we have a bunch of default settings in there. All of that is customizable. So if you like the idea, but you feel like you're getting too many alerts, we can adjust the sensitivity or how often we actually deploy the alerts. If you wish you had more, we can, increase the sensitivity. So fully customizable feature. Some people may, by default, if you only have one location, we don't alert on location level because that would be the same as company level, right? But maybe, and different people in your organization can have different alerts. Maybe your marketing folks are interested only in opportunities and pipeline. And maybe you want your providers to get alerts on their own performance for conversion rate, ASP, things that are in their control. So totally customizable feature. It's fairly new. We only rolled it out last month or two. So feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, but always looking for suggestions from users on ways that it could be more useful. And the second part of that question was, is there a place where you can go view all the data alerts? So as of today, they are email only, but we are very close to rolling out a interface within the MVP dashboard where you can go view all alerts, deployed and otherwise. And so for somebody who's like, I like this idea, but my inbox is kind of crazy, we can, again, decrease sensitivity for your emailed alerts or turn off the email feature altogether, and just you could go into MVP and look at your alerts yourself. So a lot of flexibility there depending on, what you like to get in your email.
Awesome. Okay. And
Kate, I might jump in real quick if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So there are two questions people chimed in. I will follow up with you directly. I see two right now. So I'll follow up with you directly on those questions. And there was one other question to ask about the price of Counselor AI Assist, and I apologize I didn't address that before. There is a charge of $69.95 per month per full-time clinic. We wanted to make that as inexpensive as possible. The kind of leading AI scribe feature in this space in the US is $100 per provider per month, and ours is a per clinic charge. So we, like with a lot of features, we want to build integration. We want to continue to grow it, as I was kind of, interrupting Chelsea to say at the end there. We want to keep adding the features, keep growing that value, but we also want to make it as cost effective for your practice as possible.
Wonderful. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
See you all soon.
Bye.